I'm not as sensitive as I used to be as far as, dealing with change or, you know, all the things that come along with this business, you know what I mean? And there's a lot to it outside of just performing and writing songs.
Josh, thank you so much for your time. I know these are busy and hectic days, so I very much appreciate your time. I remember from last time that you were saying like, hey, album number 10, that's a big milestone. That's special to me. So album number 11, how are you feeling right now? How different is this?
Yeah, we keep going. It's great. We kind of set out to make a rocking record. Roar Like Thunder drops June 13th, and you can pre-order it right now. And it's so great. And yeah, that was the only stipulation. We wanted to rock, no ballads, no covers, and great songs. And I feel like that's what it is. It's a lot of fun, and you can put it in and leave it in. That's always the goal. But yeah, it's crazy. Over 25 years in the game now, and just continuing to move right along here. So I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah. Just to jump straight into that, I mean, you said a number of things that I want to get back into, but something with listening to the full album, I've had a chance to listen to the album. Something I will admit, something happened that I didn't expect. I think, and I rarely say this to people in chat, so I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I genuinely think this is my favorite Buckcherry album, and usually that doesn't happen for an 11th album. It's like people usually go back to like those first 3 records or what have you. One of the elements of that for me is like I like the last 2 albums that you guys did as well, but you say something that for me, it makes me think of something. The last album, there was a couple of like subtle rockabilly influences in there. I know Stevie was in a rockabilly phase at the time. The one before that, I think there was quite a bit of AC/DC that seeped into that. Now there's some AC/DC in this one as well, especially in the opening track maybe, or in the title track. But this album feels so much like a Buckcherry statement in a way. Like you are not trying to sound like anybody else. This is just 100% Buckcherry. Is there some truth to that? Like you said, like, we didn't want to cover anything. It also just feels like less direct influences or more overt influences in these songs than before.
Well, first and foremost, like you touched on the last 3 records, so Roar Like Thunder, Hellbound, and Volume 10. And in my opinion, they're the best Buckcherry records we've ever written. And, a huge part of that equation is Marti Frederiksen, the guy who produced our record, and we co-wrote all the songs with, and he's like a 6th band member now, when we go and make records. And, he goes all the way back to 2005. On the 15 record, we co-wrote Sorry with him, and we've just had a long relationship with him. And so that's a huge part of the magic too. We're just, when we get in a room with him, we're like, we're on our A game. We're writing the best songs of our careers, and so it's really showing on these records, so I'm glad that you're recognizing that. And, for you to say that about our 11th record is a real compliment. So I appreciate that. I don't know. We didn't intentionally talk about a rockabilly influence or anything like that, but there's always AC/DC flavors on every Buckcherry record. It goes all the way back to our first one with like Lit Up and stuff. And I'm a huge AC/DC fan. I will always put it to like Marty and Stevie. If once we've written a bunch of songs, I'll always come in and say, "Where's my AC/DC track?" And then. And then finally, they'll throw me a composition like Come On, which is a really great song that we just dropped and we're playing live. And it sounds a lot like AC/DC. But once you put my voice and our melodies and the words behind it, it's a Buckcherry song, So, but I mean, that happens with all bands, You sometimes bring up artists or a song that you kind of want to reference, to get the creative juices flowing, to get everybody in the right direction. And then you just write, you write your own song, If it's what you need, just believe.
So just as a side question, I know it's probably impossible for you to answer, but as an AC/DC fan, like, what's your favorite AC/DC song, and why is that beating around the bush?
Probably "You Shook Me All Night Long." "Back in Black" was a huge record for me.
Yeah,
I had gotten into rock music like late in my teens because my all my rock records from my early teens were like independent punk rock records. I
right.
grew up, surfing and skateboarding in Southern California, and that's just what I was into. So when I did hear ACDC for the first time, I didn't know about Bon Scott. I had just heard "Back in Black." That was it, and
Yeah,
I was like, this "Back in Black" was on all the rock radio stations. Everybody played it at parties. I mean, it was amazing. And so that's when I became an instant fan. And then I started getting into the whole, scope of their career and, really dug deep. And
yeah,
Bon
yeah,
Scott
yeah.
is, a huge influence as well.
Of course, of course, of course. Now you mentioned that Marty, obviously Marty has been that writing partner, and I know there's a bit of a comedic duo going on between Marty and Stevie at some times, and I've definitely laughed at some of Stevie's impressions of Marty over the years.
Yeah, yeah.
But what? How? Because I remember last time you were telling me that Billy, who had joined a few years before, that started to write with you as well. None of those songs made the last record.
Yeah.
How is that contribution going now? Like, is he more and more comfortable contributing?
Well, right now we're just sticking with a formula that is working really good for us because, we don't have a whole lot of time, honestly. Like when we do go over there, we have to go to Nashville to work with Marty, and
Yeah,
we have to be put up in hotels, and because we don't live there. So there's a lot of that, and we just, you know, we get a lot done in a very short period of time, and we have a formula, and it works. So we have stuck with that so far. Not
yeah,
that
yeah,
Billy
yeah.
isn't a great writer or all any of that.
Okay, all right. You mentioned the influences, and we talked about AC/DC for a bit. Those are classic rock bands influences. But at this point, you said it yourself, you're over 25 years. I mean, depending on how we count, Buckcherry is 30 years young at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you're no longer influenced by classic rock. You are classic rock now, in a way. At this
it's
point,
crazy. It's
it's a wild
crazy.
ride.
You're right.
You've seen a lot, obviously. You've been on a roller coaster. You've had the highs and the lows. You
Yeah,
overcome a lot. Do you? I know that you're always busy because you're one of those bands that you're recording when you can. You're almost always on the road. You were one of the first bands after the pandemic to be like on full blown tours again. Like you're one of the first
yeah.
bands to release an album and actually play shows to promote it. In that crazy schedule, do you have time to take a step back and reflect? Like, are you nostalgic in a way? Like, I mean, 30 years, that's a lot to look back on.
I don't. I really work hard on staying in the moment for other reasons. It has nothing to do with music, and so I don't look back that much. But
Okay.
like when we hit milestones, and it's like, oh, it's been 20 years since 15 was released, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I revisit that record a little bit, and I go through kind of in my head all the memories and where I
Hmm.
was at when I wrote the songs and how it came to that, and all of that. And the 15 story is an incredible story. I've told it many times, but it's a really great comeback story. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I just try to stay in the here and now and write, be the best, artist I can be and songwriter, and because that's all I got really is right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there when you do think, about passing those milestones, and when you think about being the best you can be right now, like, has there been like one specific lesson that you learned over the years that really has impacted you and how you can be the best of yourself now?
Absolutely. First of all, this is like the most comfortable I've been in my position in my career, and I'm really enjoying myself now. But along the way, with all the peaks and valleys, I really had to learn how to take the artist hat off and put the business hat on, and
Right.
take the business hat off and put the artist hat on. And that was really challenging for me and frustrating, and I didn't enjoy it. Um, and now I've embraced it. I mean, now I'm talking about like the last over 10 years, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's just, it is what it is. It's easier for me, and I don't take, I'm not as sensitive as I used to be as far as, dealing with change or, you know, all the things that come along with this business, you know what I mean? And there's a lot to it outside of just performing and writing songs, So, so I think that is what I've learned the most as far as, just being more comfortable in my skin and in this role and my business role as well.
Buckcherry, I mean, most people will look at you as like good time rock and roll party music, but every Buckcherry album, and I feel like that's maybe more present or more easier to find in the later albums. You're also saying more stuff, more real stuff, if you will. Like, whether it's opening up about personal issues or just there's some level of commentary in there, sometimes also in the music videos that you make and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's there for people that want to go find it, because I understand that a large part of your audience wants to come to a fun rock show and just wants to have a party. But that element, making sure that balance is there for people that want to go look for it, has that also gotten easier with getting a little older and more mature?
I mean, it's never easy crafting songs and getting a body of work together that you feel is ready for the public.
Right.
That's not easy. But what happens is, once you've done so many Buckcherry records and you understand and you've seen so many Buckcherry audiences and you see what they react to, the songs and the words and the situations. As a songwriter, they all come from my head, all the words, So I kind of understand, my demographic pretty well, as far as who we're writing to. So I can attach my personal self to the song and then craft it in a way to where I think a large number of people are going to gravitate towards it. And that's the challenge. It's easier, way easier said than done. But that's what I try to do. And over the years, I have mastered, I can say that I've mastered the art of being the singer and the songwriter of this band. I've mastered it. I know exactly when I have a bad song, when it's not good enough and it's not right and it's not Buckcherry and it doesn't feel like a Buckcherry song. And then we just rewrite it or we move on or we do whatever, and that took a long time, It took a long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it is going to be yet another extremely busy year for you. Like, the band is always playing a lot of live shows, but this is a special year. You said yourself, this is also the anniversary year for 15, which is being celebrated. We also have this new album out. So for people that are going to check you out this year on a stage, like, what should we expect? Because you'll probably want to celebrate both these elements to some degree. What's coming at us?
You'll expect like a great band that really enjoys what they're doing and is very comfortable in their roles and with great songs. We have so many songs now. We have over 100 songs out in the public, to choose from, to craft like an amazing set every night. And so you definitely get your money's worth, I feel like, and we're always playing the usual suspects that people like to hear, like Lit Up and Crazy Bitch and Sorry and Riding and those type of songs, but we mix it up every night with other songs off all of our other records. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. It's going to be busy. It's going to be fun for all the fans. Josh, thank you so much. I'm super excited for all the fans to discover the full album because there's a lot of good stuff on there. Like I said, I genuinely think it's my favorite album that you guys have ever done. And I had the pleasure of discovering you guys way back in the 90s. So it's not that I only now discovered the band. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you on a stage soon.
Yeah, well, we're really close to you. We're at Ottawa tonight, and it's sold out. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.